In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting under COVID-19 declarations, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rule of Order. Actions to be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raised hand function or feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand function can be found in the participants panel on your desktop or mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raised hand function icon again and muting your microphone. We will be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking on the chat button located in the bottom of the WebEx screen. All meeting activities are being recorded on this platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. We have provided a link to the meeting for those who wish to speak on a particular case via our website and email. We received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. We'd like to now call the January 14th, 2021 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Mr. Pettit, please call roll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Anderson.
Here.
Ms. Bailey. Ms. Bailey, I think you're muted.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Kalikia.
Here.
Mr. Collier. Mr. Santora. Mr. Dreyer.
Here.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Strickland.
Here.
Mr. Tarasik.
Here.
Ms. Trout.
Here.
I'd like to point out that staff members Carl Brunges is also in attendance today, as well as Stuart Hastings from the Law Department. We've had two changes to the agenda since the original one went out. Case 21002, Little Italy Historic District, former Singer Steel Building, has been taken off the agenda. We will hear that at a future meeting. Also, case 21003, the Baricelli Inn, the Washington Inn Studios, has been changed from a certificate of appropriateness to a concept plan. So we won't be taking any action today. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you. We will begin today with public hearings. There is nothing on our schedule for today. We'll move on to certificates of appropriateness. We'd like to call our first applicant forward. Please use the raise hand function and unmute your phone so that the facilitator can unmute your phone, and then state your name for our records and tell us about your project. We'd like to ask everyone who is not presenting to please mute your microphones for respect of the presenter.
Madam Chair, we have Ted Singer.
Welcome, Mr.
Hello.
Singer.
I'm Ted Singer with Dimmitt Architects, here to present the project at 2800 Franklin Boulevard. And this is a project that has been previously approved and has been under construction. We're here to present specifically just the landscaping plan and the signage not related. There are two retail spaces associated with the building, but this is not retail signage. This is purely building identification signage for identification and wayfinding purposes. So this is the site plan of the project. Again, it's 116 apartments with 116 on-site parking spaces, 2 retail spaces, and there's not a lot of site area that is open for landscaping, but this is a specific list of all the proposed new street trees and site plantings, various ground covers, and ornamental plants that occur around the site. So if you go to the next slide, this is a little bit more illustrative and in regards to the various plantings. There are new street trees to be planted on West 28th. And then there are also a section of up against the face of a terrace on West 28th that will be a series of ornamental grasses. And then there'll be ground cover along the north edge that shares property line with the neighboring parcels. Wrapping around to Dexter, there'll be, in addition, 2 new street trees on the Dexter tree lawn, flanking the garage entrance on that end. And then as we move around to the west side of the property, adjacent to an existing single-family residence, there is a row of arborvitae along the fence line to provide buffer and privacy between the projects. And then as we move down toward the entrance lobby on the west corner of Franklin Circle, there is a series of stepped terraces as the grade steps down that will again be planted with ornamental grasses as well. Then moving to the next series of slides will show enlarged sections of the site plan. So as you can see in the top image is showing the area along Franklin Boulevard toward the lobby on the west end of the site. And you can see those sort of terraced beds on the corner with the stair that goes down from the sidewalk down to the lobby entrance level. And there's also a couple of bike racks located there as well. The lower enlarged view is along the circle on the south edge of the project, and there's a pedestrian pass-through that goes through the building, connecting to Dexter, and a retaining wall that runs along the edge of the circle, which also defines the bounds of our property and the 2 retail entrances. It's a mix of porous paving as well as some concrete as far as the hardscape is concerned. Next slide then moves down to the corner of the circle and West 28th. And again, there is some bike racks located along the retail frontage. And as you move north on West 28th Street, you can see the other entrance to the parking garage, vehicular as well as pedestrian. And then there are 2 apartment units that line the ground floor on West 28th. And there is a raised terrace about 18 inches on the south end and closer to 3.5 feet on the north end as West 28th slopes down to the north. Along that terrace is a retaining wall and ramp, and then between that retaining wall and the sidewalk is a series of ornamental grasses. And there's also, again, street trees in the tree lawn along West 28th. Next slide. This is at the north end of the building, at the terminus of Dexter, and the pedestrian pass through that goes through to the circle side. There is a electrical transformer and switch, which gets again some ornamental grasses planted between them and the sidewalk to screen them to a degree. And there is another bike rack located on the eastern side where there's a entrance to the mailroom and secondary lobby for the building. Next slide. So these are a series of site sections at the ground level that illustrate the various grade changes between the building and the site. They're primarily located along the circle side. The first 6 sections are cut along the Franklin Circle and are tagged on those enlarged plans for reference. And then there is on the last image on the left, lower left, is a section through not the retail, but the residential liner unit retaining wall and guardrail along West 28th. Next slide. So that is the scope of the landscaping that we're presenting. And then the next series of slides will show the building identification signage that we are proposing. So these 2 elevations are the Franklin Circle elevation on the lower portion, and the upper portion is the West 28th elevation. We are proposing 2 panel signs or blade signs that are to identify places of entrance for residents, one being at the garage entrance on West 20th, and there's also a pedestrian entry exit there. And then there's another panel sign to be located on the circle side on the southwest corner, adjacent to the primary main lobby entry. And then finally, we're proposing a illuminated letter sign to be integrated into the gate that goes on either end of the pedestrian pass through, the letter sign only being on the south side of the pass through, but to identify the building and also sort of identify the ability to connect through to Dexter. Next slide. On the north side of the building, again, we're proposing a small plaque to be located next to the secondary mail entry, a small cast iron or cast bronze wall plaque. And then on the header above the gate on the north side of the pedestrian pass through, just some simple pin mounted lettering, again, just to identify the building. Next slide. So this is a view of the 2 panel signs and a sort of example of the character of the signs to be intended for the project. So again, the image on the right is the sign at the main lobby entry. It's attached to the building on the corner and is on a 45 to that, so that it's visible from both directions, and also isn't in conflict with the uplighting on the corner of the building. And then on West 28th, there is a secondary panel sign again located between the garage, the vehicular garage entry, and the pedestrian exit from the garage. Next slide. So these are just some additional perspective views showing the locations and scale and design of those panel signs on the lower two images, and the upper image shows the letter sign above the header and the pass through. Next slide. So the intent of the letter sign above the pass through is for it to be illuminated at night along the perimeter of the sign. And this gives you the sort of scale and dimensions of the signage and concept. The next slide is, so these are the shop drawings from the sign provider. So this is the plaque for the lobby, mail lobby on the north side. Next slide. This is the panel sign at the corner of the lobby, so you can see it connects on the 45. And there are, I guess I failed to mention, there's two lights that shine back on the sign that sort of stand off from the face of the panel. Next slide. This is the letter sign over the pedestrian pass-through, and you can see the portion that's illuminated is just Dexter versus the sign during the daytime. You would see the Dexter and dimensions of the various letters. Next slide. And I believe finally this is the other panel sign, is slightly smaller than the one on the corner by the lobby. This is the one that's between the garage door and the pedestrian exit from the garage. I think that's all of the slides. Yes.
Excellent, thank you. We have feedback from the local design review committee.
Hi, good morning, commission members. Thanks for having me again. Donna Gregonis with Ohio City Incorporated and Tremont West Development Corporation. So the recommendations of the local design review committee, they did not have very many comments. They were excited to see this and they had approved this as presented. So minimal comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll open the floor then for the commission. Any questions or comments from the commission?
We have Mr. Strickland.
Go ahead, Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the signs are very handsome, appropriate in size and color and lighting. And in addition to the landscaping as well, I think is totally appropriate. And the Dexter Place Drive, is that a dedicated street still, or has that been vacated? I'm wondering who's going to maintain along that driveway in terms of.
Madam Chair, Mr. Singer would like to respond.
Go ahead, Mr. Singer.
Dexter Place is still a legal street. It has not been vacated.
So the city will be responsible for plowing that street?
That would be my understanding.
Yeah, and so are there provisions for accommodating snow removal? Where are they going to deposit the snow and where might it be piled up? I want to make sure that the landscaping does not impede the city's ability to maintain that road in the wintertime.
Madam Chair, Mr. Singer again.
If you were to zoom in on the site plan, the entrance to the surface parking lot is probably about 20 feet short of the end of Dexter Place. So I believe that there would be sufficient space as required to plow Dexter and have, snow piled as necessary at the end of the street, which would still allow vehicular access to the building.
And has this been reviewed by the city engineering department to confirm that that's their plan? Or have they provided any input to the design team?
I don't believe we've had any of that feedback, but the project was permitted probably over a year ago, and I don't recall specifically a conversation related to snow maintenance for Dexter Avenue, but I would have expected that question to come from the cities at that point. So the project is actually about, I would say, 85-90% completed at this point, and is slated to be occupied in early March of this year.
Yeah, I understand. I think, the project is beautiful. Go by it frequently. And I agree that I would have assumed that the engineering department would have provided comments with any concerns, but, and I don't know what the appropriate follow-up would be, but I would be concerned that there is specific coordination to make sure that there's no missteps with regard to maintaining Dexter Place in the wintertime. So I don't know if you double back with engineering, or perhaps we could initiate that discussion to make sure that there's no gaps in understanding on how that will be maintained.
If Mr. Strickland is done, Madam Chair, we have Ms. Paley.
Mr. Strickland, any additional comments?
No, Madam Chair, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
You're muted, Adrian.
I agree with Mr. Strickland. This project is well thought out, the colors and the scale, and as well as the sign. It doesn't look massive, and I like the thinness of the sign, and as well as the lettering. And I only have two questions, especially the sign that goes to the pathway or the gateway for the pathway. When it looks at nighttime, is it just the edges only that's being lit, and the bow of the sign is just shown? How is it being lit, the sign itself, the Dexter? Is it just the edges of the sign being lit?
Go ahead, Mr. Singer.
Yes, if you go to I think the next slide, or a few slides, shows the edge of this, only the edges of the letters will be illuminated. I think a couple of slides from here show the sort of nighttime versus daytime view of the sign.
Adrian, we're getting a tremendous amount of feedback when you're not speaking. So when you're not speaking, please mute your microphone. Thanks.
All right, thanks. And I have one more comment. Stay on this slide. I see some gates right here. Is this an intent? Is that part of that pathway? So at nighttime you have a gate there to close this off?
Mr. Singer?
Yes, as part of the original submission, we have gates at both ends of the pedestrian path through. So during the evening, the path through can be secured so that it's not a place for people to gather, and it can be securely maintained.
Could you provide more information to staff of what it's made out of and color and all that? And it's two of it on both ends, correct?
That's correct. There are two painted metal gates that are black. We certainly can provide the shop drawings for those to staff if requested.
That's all. Thank you.
Ms. Trott, you're the next with your hand raised.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Just a few comments. I mean, overall, I think it's very appropriate design proposal. You know, I think the landscaping and the signage is very fitting for the building and the location. My only comments would be related to landscaping around your generator and transformer. Did you consider using more of using your palette of arborvitaes versus a ornamental grass that's not going to provide the shielding that like an arborvitae would? The reason why you ornamental grass versus something that would create more of a fence like surround?
Go ahead, Mr. Singer. You don't have to keep raising your hand once we've started your
Okay,
project.
sorry. I was trying to follow protocol.
You're very polite.
So I think we've thought about it, but there's not a lot of space there. And I think it's unlikely that it's going to be entirely visually screened. So we really just looked for something that would provide some color and some buffer without necessarily trying to make a fence out of it. It is there. It's a piece of equipment that's required, and we think grasses will be a sufficient buffer to kind of separate it from the sidewalk and also not require maintenance like grass seed or something to that effect.
Okay. I know that there's also public art proposed for this building. Could you show us where that is related to your landscaping proposal, just for understanding, and if there's going to be any lighting or anything related to this piece of public art?
Okay, so there are a few pieces of public art to be located primarily within the pedestrian pass-through of the building. And then there are two small, well, maybe not small, but two panels flanking the garage entrance on Dexter Ave. So to both sides of the garage entrance, there is a panel on either side that I believe is roughly 8 by 6, and there will be a exterior wall sconce light that shines back onto the face of those panels. But we're still working with OCI on finalizing all the details of the public art portion of this.
Okay. Thank you for the explanations. That's helpful. I think around the transformer, my personal opinion would have it show more, but I respect your decision there. Other questions or comments from the commission members? If not, would someone like to put forward a vote? Or a motion, sorry.
Mr. Strickland.
Go ahead, Mr. Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I would move to approve the signage and the landscaping for the Dexter project as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, Mr. Pettit, could you please call roll and announce the results?
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchia,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trot.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations. We look forward to the opening of the building and seeing the landscaping and signage here in the near future. We'll move on to our second applicant, the addition of the medical building and site improvements located at 9201 Lorraine Avenue.
Looks like we have Janice Cole, Madam Chair.
Yep. I'm Janice Colin from Makovich and Pucci Architects, and we're here to show what has been revised on the Medcare project on 92nd and Lorraine. This is the site location. We could probably move through this. I think everybody's seen this. Next slide. The location is at 92nd and Lorraine. We're proposing a approximately 5,000 square foot addition medical building, medical offices onto an existing building. Next slide. We have some neighborhood context pictures still in here. I think we had seen these last time through. I don't know if anybody has not seen them. Next slide. This is the actual building that we'll be adding on to. Next slide. I wanted to point out some changes to the landscaping plan per the neighborhood review. We have in the lower right-hand corner, we've adjusted the angle of the dumpster so that the garbage trucks can pick up trash easier. We relocated some of the mulch beds to be back against the fence so that maintenance will be a little bit easier. The back alley has been vacated, so we did take some of that property back over and added a little bit more green space back there with plantings. And we recentered some of the trees into the islands per the comments from the neighborhood review. Next slide. As I had stated last time, we are planning to reuse as much of the existing plantings on site. They're all in good shape. They're fairly new. And so we were planning to relocate them as we can. We are adding new arborvitaes along the back of the property to screen from the neighborhood. Next slide. This is the floor plan. I don't know that there's anything to talk about on here. The entrance is in the northwest corner against Lorraine Avenue. The building is pulled tight against Lorraine Avenue, which is consistent with the building next door. Next slide. One of the talking points at the last meeting was the context of the building, and we've gone back and forth with neighborhood review. We were asked to consider real face brick to complement the existing face brick of the building next door. And so this is a contextual elevation of the existing building that we're adding on to. We have the existing, or we have new face brick that complements the color of the existing. I have a slide later in the presentation that actually shows real samples so that you can see a little bit better than the computer generated model. We went with a swept copper look roof to try to tie into the existing copper roofs that are on the adjacent building. We have a cast stone base, which will give a little bit more durability to the building, as well as tie into the existing building. And then we were planning to paint some of the existing wood trim of the adjacent building to match the new trim of our existing building so that those two buildings can tie together a little bit. One of the comments that came up in the neighborhood review was the color of the windows. And the existing windows on the existing building are black on the second floor, and they are painted green wood on the first floor. So we have decided to go with a black anodized frame in the new building that would tie in with the existing windows on the second floor. And then we plan to paint the existing windows on the first floor black so that they're all tied together and consistent. What else did we talk about? The two bay accent windows and the entrance would still be a Nichiha panel that would complement the stone. And I have samples of that later on in this presentation. We also tied in the windows. The new windows on the building are treated with the same head and sill stone feature that's on the existing buildings to try to tie those together. And then we were going to paint the base of the existing building. There's some wood, the wood knee wall or paneled face on the existing building. We were going to paint those the same colors as the new building with the light color, the field color, and the accent color, which would be similar to the color of the copper so that those can tie together too. Next slide. This is just a larger elevation of a larger picture of the same elevation, just so you can see more of the detail. Next slide. That was the north elevation. This would be the west elevation, which would be treated similarly. You can see both elevations from the street, so we would want to be consistent between the two elevations. Next slide. This is just a rear of the building, just to show that we were going to continue the brick along the back. We wouldn't necessarily run the trim around the back, but we would wrap it to finish it off. We would still have a stone base along there. Next slide. This is the perspective view of the front entrance. And you can see in this this view that the north and the west elevations are treated similarly so that it's a consistent face. Next slide. Just an evening shot of the same. And the last slide shows the suggested materials that we were going to use. The copper look sweep roof. We weren't going to use real copper because we were concerned that it might be a theft issue or problem. Black anodized aluminum frames, the accent paints, which would be similar to the copper color on the existing building. We show the Nichiha panel, which has a texture to it. And then the base would be a cast stone, but it would be a smooth finish. So there would be a little bit of a play between those two with the textured finish and the smooth finish. And then the picture on the right-hand side is a picture that we took while we were out in the field, showing the actual brick panel that we are suggesting against that yellow brick of the existing building, and showing on the top of the brick panel, you can see the small samples of the Nichiha and the stone and how they all tie together with the existing building, with the brick of the existing building. That's it.
Thank you. Do we have feedback from the local committee?
Madam Chair, this went to the Far West Design Review Committee in December. It was It was approved. I believe it was approved as presented. They had concern over the Nichi-Ha paneling. Committee thinks that actual brick or hardy siding mimicking the color and temperament of the adjacent historical brick building would look substantially better. Material could also mimic the yellow color of the adjacent building. They asked that the center west side trees in the landscape, the trees on the west side be centered in the landscaping island, and that the dumpster angle needs to be reevaluated. And I believe staff has reviewed this, and I believe the changes have been made to reflect the committee's recommendations. We think the project is much more contextual, and we're happy with the reduction in all of the Nichi-Ha siding.
Excellent, thank you. Questions or comments from the commission?
Adrian Bailey, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Bailey.
Oh gosh, can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm pleased with the design compared with the different option from last time. I'm was concerned about the base lower part of it, how it's going to relate to the snow, especially at the main entry. So this is much better compared to everything, and I like how the materials and the color and everything blend in with all the buildings. So I'm pleased with how everything looked. So I'm happy with it.
Excellent, thank you. Other commission?
I missed that. Someone else, Ms. Trott, you have your hand raised.
I have to get myself in the lineup these days. I just wanted to say, thank you for taking our feedback to heart and adjusting your design to accommodate some of our concerns, both local and related to the commission. I think what you brought forward is a very nice contextual building. It doesn't, try to take away from the historic neighbor building that you're connecting to. So I just want to say thank you for listening to our feedback, and I think it's a great adjustment to the design, improvements to the design. Other questions or comments from the commission? If not, would someone like to put forward a motion?
Looks like we have Ms. Bailey.
I make a motion to approve as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
We have Michelle Anderson.
I will second the motion.
Excellent. Thank you. Any further discussion? Does not sound like there is. So, Mr. Pettit, could you please call roll and announce the results?
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Klickier,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Hey man, what's up? I just texted you. Did they do Washington Place already?
Mr. Griffin, you're not muted.
Oh, so you guys are not doing so you're not gonna be on there today then.
Mr. Dryer.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasik,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Thank you. And we look forward to seeing your project continue on.
Thank you very much.
We'll move on to our third applicant for today, which is located at 3146 Scranton Road and 2202 Frame Avenue, renovation and adaptive reuse for senior apartments.
And it looks like we have Brian. I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name.
Grambort, I am here. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Should I go ahead and begin presentation? All right, let's start here. So thank you everybody for hearing us this morning. What you're looking at here is photos of the historic St. Michael's School, which is in the Clark Fulton neighborhood. And to give everybody a bit of context on this project was initially submitted in response to an RFP from the city for development in the Clark Fulton neighborhood. So we are partnering with CHN Housing Partners to adaptively reuse this historic building and the convent on the same property into independent senior housing. We will be using historic tax credits, which we've submitted to this State Historic Preservation Office and received approval on the Part 2, which has been forwarded to the National Park Service at this time. We will also be using housing tax credits, and this project will be submitted to the Ohio Housing Finance Agency shortly for that program under the Fact 50 program. So go ahead. Sorry. Was there a comment there? Okay. Actually, let's go back to the previous slide real quick. So as I mentioned, this is the this historic school building. You see down below the main facade off of Scranton. On the left is the Kinkle Avenue facade, which matches the Frame facade on the right. And then the two center top images are the west elevation facing the convent. So there is an accessible entrance here at the top center right. That's the only accessible entrance to the building. Even the entrance off of a Scranton Road, you enter and then there are steps down to the main floor. So I guess two things I'd like to bring to your attention on these elevations. The first, the masonry. Our intention is to maintain the masonry. It has, I think, weathered well. There are certain areas, specifically around the gutters at the bottom, and then downspouts at the bottom, and then gutters along the top of the fourth floor where the masonry has deteriorated some. We will be repairing any critical damage. So that's item number one. Item number two, please pay particular attention to the windows. The windows were replaced at some point in the past when the school building was utilized as offices. They were replaced with this is an aluminum window. Our intention is to remove all the windows and replace them with a new aluminum window that is set back at the glazing at the location of the original window. As well, we are going to be replacing kind of the 2-bay configuration. If you look down at the Scranton facade, at the larger window openings, there are 2-bay windows. We're going to be replacing these with a historic 3-bay configuration. I had forwarded an image of a postcard, kind of an historic shot of the school, and I don't know if we have that in the presentation, but you'll see in that image that the 3-bay historic window was the original configuration. So it's our intention to move back to that. One last item, actually, on Scranton Road elevation, the center bay originally had a kind of grand flanking staircase up to the second floor, which was the primary entrance. At some point in the past, that has been removed, and a very thin, what we feel is insubstantial canopy was installed over the double doors at grade. We are not proposing to reestablish or restore that staircase, but it is our intention to replace the canopy with a more substantial canopy that feels more proportional. It would not project farther, but we do plan to raise it up some and make it a bit thicker. Next slide, please. This is these are kind of pieced together shots of the convent. It was not constructed, obviously, at the same time as the school. Is part of the federal historic tax credits, but we would not submit this for, I believe, state tax credits. It is a masonry building. Similar to the school, we are proposing to replace all of the windows. You see in some of these photos, the windows are casement windows instead of hung windows like the school. We are maintaining the 3-unit casement with transom over the top configuration, and we will be providing air conditioning to each of the apartments inside, so the window units will go away. Once we get to the drawings, you'll see we are proposing one major addition, and on both buildings, one major addition, and it is on the convent. It's on this back side, which you see on the north elevation. We'll be adding a full-service elevator and a 1-story lobby. Next slide, please. So these are some notes. So these are samples of finishes. Working from the top left, this is a fiber cement color that we're proposing for the elevator and lobby addition on the convent. The brick is the brick on the convent, and the khaki brown is the sample of fiber cement paneling. That is a slightly darker hue. The next slide over is the Sahara sand sample of the proposed replacement window to match the existing light color of the window on the convent. And then the third slide on the top is an antique bronze, a photo of an existing installed antique bronze Graham Lincoln, and we're proposing the same antique bronze color. What you see here is a stone that's very similar to the stone on the school. We will have a limited decorative metal fencing, which is what you see on the top right. At certain areas, we are not fully enclosing or securing the perimeter of the site, but at certain areas where we need to define boundaries, this is along Prame and Kinkle, this is what we would use. Intermediate border fencing would be the board-on-board fencing just below that. And then we have some light fixtures that would be building mounted on the school to light the new parking lot, and some site benches as site amenities. Let's skip forward past a couple of the notation sheets and see if we can get to the site plan here. This is the existing site plan. You see it is along Scranton primarily. Next slide. This is the existing site plan. So the existing school building in that kind of reddish, large reddish color. And you see in between the school and the convent, it's really just a very large amount of hardscaping. A lot of parking with a very small kind of private patio tucked back behind the convent building. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed site plan. Our intention is to maintain the curb cut along Prame and the curb cut along Kinkle. There is enough space off of Prame for the parking lot to be two-way, so an entrance and turnaround and exit. But once you get between the school and the convent, it's really too tight. We're making that one way out to Kinkle with trash pickup at that north end of the school building. We're proposing to meet kind of the minimum parking requirements for senior housing based on the city with 16 spaces. As you see, we're really trying to, on this very tight site, really trying to increase the amount of green space, maintaining the grand stair entrances at both the north and the south end of the school, maintaining the main entrance to the convent off of Prame, but also we're looking at trying to emphasize the main pedestrian entrance off of Scranton. So what we're showing here is a proposed, on the right side of the school building is a proposed kind of seating area flanking the main entrance path with some landscaping to provide a bit of buffer between the right-of-way and those kind of pseudo-private public seating, resident seating areas. We are proposing a very short knee wall and along the sidewalk, and then it's not tagged, but there is a small square inside that landscaping bed, and that would be a new ground sign, monument sign, to be designed at a later date and reviewed. One item to note, we are proposing to relocate an RTA bus stop along Scranton. Currently, the bus stop is one block up, closer to the church, and our discussions with the city previously was that it would make sense with this type of improvement to try to bring that closer to kind of this residential development. So at the top, the north curb cut adjacent to the vehicle drive, we are showing two lines where decorative metal fencing would be. At the left of those, parallel to the alley, that would become board on board. The board on board would follow the alley to the left and then south to intersect with the convent building. And then we would provide decorative metal fencing from the convent building out to Prame Avenue, again, just defining the boundary between the adjacent single family residence and this property. Next slide, please. This is just an elevation along Scranton of the school, and you'll see the upper image is the existing with the, again, with the 2-bay window configuration, and down below we're showing the 3-bay window configuration, still with the transom, which is the historic configuration. You also see on the top left of this screen the proposed form of the canopy. I apologize, I misspoke. The new canopy will project out slightly farther than the existing, but it's in a bit of a different configuration. We feel just the thickness and the height would be more proportional to the building. Generally, this represents the intention of ours of any updates, reconfiguration of the school building. We're really limiting it to repairs and restoration other than windows and the canopy. Next slide. These are the other, the north and south facades. Next slide, please. And the west facade of the school, I should bring to your attention the one visible addition, square foot addition to the school is on the 4th floor above the main auditorium. So on the lower elevation, you see the main auditorium kind of block, and up at the top right-hand corner, there's a hatched portion. That is a new trash chute, janitor's closet that stacks, and at that point it pops up above the auditorium. I should say this is pushed back probably a good 30 feet from the edge of the auditorium building, and you can see later on some images that we've provided, it is barely visible. Next slide, please. The rest of these are mostly floor plans showing, our intention of adapting the interior space. I'm not sure if you'd like me to touch upon any of these.
I think at this time, if there is any relevance to the exterior restoration and renovation, then yes, please go ahead. If they're just really for orientation, then I don't think, just tell us a quick overview of what you're doing is great for all the floors.
Okay. Well, I'll just touch upon briefly some common spaces. This is the primary configuration of the school, centrally loaded, a double loaded corridor with original classroom spaces. You can kind of see defined 4 on the bottom, 2 on the top. The top left was a mechanical space, and then a large auditorium in the center upper portion. Our intention is to maintain the volume of the auditorium and the stage proscenium arch. We will be utilizing the stage space behind the proscenium arch for trash removal, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing supplies. And then the portion just to the left of the auditorium would become common area. So if you flip to the next page, you'll see the intention. So the auditorium remains, the classrooms and the mechanical space become residential units, and then we have a small amount of common spaces accessible from that accessible entrance to the top left. Move on to, let's see if we can get to the 4th floor, so keep going. One more, please. Right there. So this is the 4th floor, the roof space. We're now above the auditorium. The configuration is still the same. We're providing classrooms and units in each of the classrooms. And then just above the corridor to the right, you see there's a trash room, janitor's closet, and trash chute. That's the new addition I was referring to. And you see how far back it is set from even the edge of the classroom. It's 26 feet. So to the edge of the auditorium is almost double that. So virtually invisible, I guess, from the street. Let's move forward to the convent. Keep going. So this is the convent elevations. I think we've kind of touched upon that, except you see in the lower right elevation, the profile of the new elevator tower and the 1-story lobby addition. Next slide, please. Again, at the bottom right, this is the view, the north facade of this addition. So it's only the top of the elevator tower really is going to be visible from the street, and it matches the existing chimney height. So we're not exceeding the existing height of the building. Our intention is to use again a fiber cement paneling that is compatible in color, but differentiates it as a new element on this building. Next slide, please. This is a typical floor layout, very similar to the school in that it's a double loaded corridor with spaces on either side. This is currently being used as a drug treatment center with some common spaces here. And then on the upper floors, they become residential sleeping units. Our intention, if you flip to the next slide, is very similar to the school to provide resident units in those spaces on either side of the corridor. The elevator, let's go forward 2 slides actually. So this is the 1st floor plan, the 1-story lobby that we're adding, and then the full service elevator will provide access into what we're maintaining as a lobby and access into this double loaded corridor. And otherwise, the unit layout for the convent is the same on all floors. Let's move forward now. See if we can get to some of the renderings we did for SHPO. Keep going. Right there. This is an existing image on the left and a proposed image on the right. So you see in the top image, the elevator tower is barely visible. On the lower images, it is very, very clear from Kinkle Avenue, but only as you pass by the alleyway. Slide, please. Is that it? Oh, here. I believe last two images, again, providing an existing view and a view with the addition onto the convent. I think that's the representation of our scope, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We appreciate the presentation. Do we have feedback from local committee?
Madam Chair, this was reviewed by the Near West Design Review Committee and approved as presented.
Excellent. We'll open the floor then to commission members for questions or comments.
Adrian Bailey.
Go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
Yes, hi. Just to get an understanding, the residential, is it 100% for senior citizens? To just get clear understanding?
It is, yes.
Okay. Could you go to the site plan? My understanding, you're working with the RTA to move the bus stop closer to the building, the site.
We've not made contact, but it is our intention to reach out to the RTA.
Could we get the site plan, please?
And I should add, it is low income senior independent living.
I'm assuming, although you're working with RTA on this, I'm just wondering, and I'm looking at your site plan as far as the sizes of the parking. I'm just wondering, are you also including, and I know you have this large scale of the area for transportation. I'm just wondering, do you have a drop-off area for vehicles for, let's say, private transportation, picking up seniors from the building, dropping off, picking up and bringing them back? So I didn't hear that in your conversation.
No, our thought is that at the lower parking area off of Prame, that it is wide enough to be two-way. We would hope that a transportation bus or shuttle bus would be able to pull up adjacent to the school accessible entrance temporarily, and could park there, still allowing some access through the parking lot if needed. So we try to accommodate those types of needs. The site is very tight. We're trying to make those accommodations though.
So is this where it says the secondary school entrance? Is that the location?
Our assumption is that the residents may not want to accommodate stairs all the time when they're going in and out. So our thought is that most of the ingress and egress out of the school, into and out of the school building, will be through the ADA school entrance, which is right next to that parking.
Okay. All right, so okay, that's what I want to know. So you come in off of Pram and you go through where the grave area is, and you're coming through the ADA school entry.
Yes.
And how much of a distance from that door to the grave part, to the edge of that parking lot? I just want the distance.
It's probably about 10 to 15 feet.
Okay. All right.
Less than a couple.
All right. I know you're trying to put the ADA parking in there. Could you just kind of look at that again? Just study that a little more. I'm not saying to put it closer to that opening, but just look at that a little more. I understand it's a little tight, but that's what I was looking at just to see. And I see you have a one-way, the vehicle come in and it's a one-way to go back out to Kingle. That's the street to go out one way. So I see what you're trying to do. All right. So, all right.
Yeah,
That's what I'm.
Yes, as we further develop the design and engineering, absolutely, resident services is something we definitely focus on.
Yeah, just make it more easier for the seniors to go from that door to the vehicle and, go back. So I see what you're doing. I see it's in one way right there. All right. Okay. Well, just look at that more. So I didn't hear that in your conversation while you was explaining that. All right. Thank you.
We have Ms. Cheryl Anderson.
Go ahead, Ms.
Madam
Anderson.
Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to commend you for taking on this project. It's been sitting kind of idle there for many years, and it's such a beautiful building. I really look forward to seeing the appropriate windows installed. And I also want to mention that I did see a copy of that photo with the original magnificent staircase in front.
Yeah.
And it was really something, but of course it's not ADA appropriate, and it certainly would be very expensive to try to replicate.
Yeah.
But I do commend what you are doing here. This is a wonderful project and a great addition to the neighborhood.
We appreciate that. We're all very excited to work on it. It is absolutely a great building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have Mr. Strickland, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr.
And then yourself.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question about the masonry restoration. Could you give us a sense, just maybe on a percentage basis, how much of the masonry needs to be restored? You talked about at the gutters and downspouts. And I would like to know what research or analysis you've done to match the existing mortar. And if you can review from your research if prior tuck pointing efforts are apparent, how many different types of mortar might be on the building presently, and what you're doing to try to match the original mortar for the building.
Okay. I'm not sure I could give a percentage. I mean, if I had to, I would say it's less than 10% that is, or I'd say less than 5% that's in critical need of restoration. These buildings weather, they patina, and we don't want to necessarily take that away. But our efforts thus far have been we've engaged Barber and Hoffman, who is a structural engineer and restoration specialist, and they did a visual observation survey, which identified not only masonry, but also masonry features. So for instance, buttresses, the buttresses you see at the lower right-hand corner at the top gable end, the left one was observed as unstable. And so they've identified maybe 4 or 5 of these that need to be strapped back temporarily And then the masonry restoration would include removal and reattachment of that. Our intention also is to, they also identified the steeple that's kind of off center, and we will be taking off the lantern at the top. The cross was already removed, but and stored. The lantern will also be removed and reset in place. So we've engaged Barber and Hoffman for that. In addition, we're working with John G. Johnson as the general contractor, who is engaged. I think it's American Masonry Contractors. I may have gotten the name wrong, but they are a restoration specialist and have come out, and we're looking to engage them as well to do a more detailed, thorough survey of the masonry. As for replacement of repointing of joints, matching mortar and masonry, we received a conditional approval from SHPO with the understanding that we would go through the due diligence of making sure that the masonry matches the density, the replacement masonry and mortar matches the density, the color, so on and so forth. And we would kind of go through that process. So we have not started that process of determining what specific material or color, but that is our intention. And we know SHPO will hold us to that. So if that is something that the commission would like to be kept apprised of, we absolutely can do that when we get to that point.
Yeah, I would suggest that you submit those mortar samples to the staff.
Understood.
Yeah.
I mean, similar to the windows, our intention would be to do mock-ups. So we would have a window mock-up that we would take photos of and have details of the profiles, et cetera, that we would send to SHPO. Similarly, we would do mock-ups of any kind of restoration, repointing, and photograph that and submit product data. So we would include the commission on that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm probably next with comments. I just also wanted to echo what Ms. Anderson said. I commend you for this restoration. It's an amazing building, and it's great to see that it's finally going to be brought back to its original glory. And my only comment was related to the addition on the convent. Not the biggest fan of the fiber cement panels, but will always relinquish to SHPO's recommendations or what they're accepting. But the rest of the project is beautiful, and it's a wonderful reuse of this facility, in my opinion.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the commission, or would someone like to put forward a motion?
I move.
Sorry. Adrian Bailey.
Go ahead, Ms. Bailey.
I make a motion to move the to accept the project as presented. Madam Chair, I didn't hear the comment that you made on your statement on the material.
I apologize. I just said background noise.
Oh,
on my side. I just said my personal opinion is I am not the biggest fan of the fiber cement siding on the new addition, but will relinquish any comments there if SHPO has already approved that material.
all right. I moved the project as presented, but look at the private transportation to the ADA entry, because for private transportation at that door, that may be used probably more frequent than the RTA bus stop. And present any masonry information to staff. That's my motion.
Thank you, James.
We have Mr. Dryer.
ahead.
I will second the motion.
Excellent, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Pettit, could you please call the roll and announce the results?
Thank you. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Colicchio,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Tarasic,
Yes.
Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion to approve passes unanimously.
Wonderful. Congratulations, and we look forward to seeing this project move forward.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time. Have a good day.
You too. We'll move on to our concept plan approvals or reviews, I should say, of our agenda. We have one applicant on to review the Baricelli Inn located at 2203 Cornell Road, renovation for Washington Inn Studios. Would the applicant please come forward and state your, use the raise hand function and tell us about your project.
We have Kristen Martinez.
Oh, go ahead, Kristen, please.
Oh, okay. Kristen Martinez, project architect with LDA Architects. This project is the Washington Inn Suites. It's at the corner of Murray Hill and Cornell Road. This project is associated with the Baricelli Apartments next door. The project was previously operating as a hotel and restaurant, but due to the COVID situation, that model is not really feasible at the moment. So we are proposing that we turn this into for rent housing with 13 apartment buildings. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is the site plan. So we are looking at providing parking at a 1-to-1 ratio. We have 7 spots to the plan right, with additional parking in the adjacent apartment building that is next door. Both the Washington Inn building and the apartment building are operated by the same ownership of Michael Panzica and Brad Nipson, who I believe are both on the call. Next slide. For the most part, the work that we're doing will be on the first floor. The second and third floors are the existing hotel suites that we'll be converting into apartments with the addition of kitchens. HVAC will remain the same for the second and third floors. This project did go before Little Italy Design Review on Tuesday, and we'll be incorporating those comments, but those comments are not incorporated in the set that you're seeing in front of you today. So we'll have to walk you through those verbally. Next slide, please. These are the existing plans. Again, most of our work is going to be focused on the first floor. This area was previously the kitchen at the plan north of the first floor. And the historic rooms on the first floor were used as dining spaces when the restaurant was occupying it. Next slide, please. This is our proposed basement plan. We'll be providing storage space for the apartment tenants as well as laundry spaces with trash to the plan north at its current location. Next slide, please. First floor, we are adding 7 apartment units into the first floor as shown. Due to design review feedback on Tuesday, there's a possibility that this will change from 7 apartments into 6 apartment units. One of the comments from design review was that the open porches should be maintained. Currently, there's a porch that faces Cornell Road to the plan left, and a smaller porch planned south that faces Murray Hill. Those are currently glazed porches. They were used as dining spaces previously, and it was design review's opinion that those should maintain that open glazed look that allows you to see the building behind and give the impression that it is in fact still a porch. Next slide, please. We are proposing the removal of the existing skylight that is planned right. We're removing, I'd say about 80% of the skylight. We're keeping the portion that's over the stairs. And in place of that skylight, which is it's part of the 1984 addition to the building. It's sort of this backwards C shape that's on the historic building. So we'd be removing the 1984 skylight with a roof deck that we would be adding that you'll see in that hatched pattern to the right side of the sheet. We'd be adding a small common area, and then one of the design review comments was adding more glazing at this common area. Next slide, please. Third floor, similar to the second floor units below, the third floor is going to stay mostly the same except for the addition of kitchens into the apartment rental units. Next slide, please. This is the storefront for the main entry. Would be dark in color, bronze to match the existing windows that are in the historic building, and the window schedule below. One of the design review comments was that they would prefer to see double hung windows instead of the casement windows that we're proposing. The windows in the historic portion of the building are double hung, and it was design review's opinion that a double hung would better match the building for the new windows that we're proposing. Next slide, please. I'd say the majority of the design review comments were on the elevations, so we're going to have to kind of verbally walk you through the changes that we'll be making based on their comments from Tuesday. As far as the dark fiber cement paneling that we're showing, they wanted to see the portion that's in the lower 1984 building remains glazing similar to the porches that we were showing on the other sides of the building. So we'll be exploring that as we redesign. And you'll see the railing for the roof deck. It's currently shown as glass. Design review's opinion was that if we switch to a smaller metal picket rail, that would be less obtrusive than the glass railing that we're currently showing. Another comment was that the common area at the second floor should sort of stand alone. They suggested maybe looking at stucco, which would match the 1984 edition, or another material to sort of differentiate it from the historic building. Next slide, please. This is the Murray Hill elevation. So you'll see on the top elevation, we'll be retaining the existing glazing that's on the porch that faces the Murray Hill side, as well as the porch that you'll see to the left that faces Cornell. Since we're converting them to apartment units, we may explore the option of adding some operable windows into those glazing configurations since we're changing the use of the building. Next slide. This is our Cornell Road elevation. So again, if you look at the top elevation, the existing, we'll be going back to the glazed porch, again, possibly adding some operable windows. The glazing all occurs behind the historic porch columns. Next slide. This is the elevation that faces the new Baricelli apartment building. We have a handful of punched openings that go into the 1984 addition into the stucco, as well as you'll see on the second floor, partial skylight that will remain over the stairs and the common area volume that goes out to our new proposed roof deck. Next slide. The next two slides are a handful of elevations. We can get into those details as needed, but I think we'll turn it over to the commission at this point.
Excellent, thank you. Do we have feedback from the local committee?
Yes, good morning. Ray Christosik here. I think Kristen kind of hit on all the issues. Our concern was that what they showed us on Tuesday night with the Hardy panel over the openings that are glass right now is we felt as though it was taken away from the character of the building. Plus, it seemed like they were, like you would just, like when you had storefronts in the neighborhood in the 80s that people just boarded over because they wanted to put a room behind there or they didn't want somebody. It just didn't, it wasn't right for this building since this is probably, top 5 buildings in the neighborhood of historic value and significance. We, as Krista mentioned, we were concerned about the type of windows being installed on the apartment side of the project, and the committee did like the idea of putting the porch over the existing glass roof, replacing with that. So we just want to make sure that the building, the historic structure is maintained in a way that is sympathetic to the building itself. I think when they did the work in '84, I think they did a nice job of, enclosing those porches for use, but you still, from the sidewalk, when you walk by the building, that was a porch, and you see the original building beyond. When they were their first application with the Hardy panel and closing it in with small windows, I think would have taken away that effect. So I'm glad to see that the development group was responsive to our concerns, and I think that based on what Kristen was saying, I think we're on a better path than we were Tuesday night. So I appreciate that they're being, we're finding a way to cooperate on this. But we just want to make sure that this building, whatever work is done in there, is maintains the historic fabric. So thank you.
Thank you. We saw that we have Councilman Griffin here with us today. Would you like to say a few words?
I'll just be very brief. I agree with the local committee. I just really want to make sure that we keep the architectural historical value of this building. And I know this is conceptual, so we'll be watching to see if the changes that have been recommended by the committee are made. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And we'll open up the floor to the commission members for questions and comments.
Madam Chair, we have Mr. Pettit.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Pettit.
Thank you. Just for the record, we did receive an email this morning from Lucy Ann Christopher. She owns the property directly to the north of the development. She had issues during the construction with her property. There was some damage. Those are being addressed by the developer at their cost. But she asked us to please study carefully what is being requested by the developer and that we reinforce community preservation so frequently ignored or minimized. And that email has been shared with the commission. Thank you.
Thank you for highlighting that. Questions, comments from the commission?
Adrian Bailey.
I just have a question. I love the original look of the building. So my question to the architect, what's the purpose of adding addition to it? What is the owner trying to do? Add more space to add more customer? Could you explain what's the purpose of the additional to this beautiful historical, already beautiful building? So can you explain what's these additional and the purpose for?
Sure. Can we go to A101, please?
Maurice, would you mind going to slide that is noted as 101?
101, sorry, I didn't hear what she said.
Yeah, A101, our first floor plan. Can you go 2 forward? sorry, A111.
Ah, I heard 101.
I said 101. Thank you. Okay. Our intention in enclosing the porches was to better preserve the interior spaces. We did look at pulling where the bathrooms and kitchens are shown in suites, I think it's 1 and 6, into those interior spaces. And they really just started to interfere with the historic fireplaces, the historic trim. So our intention was if we pulled them out, then we were better able to keep the open feel of those spaces and use them as bedrooms and living rooms instead of kitchens and bathrooms.
I apologize. Could you speak a little louder? I'm not hearing what you're saying.
Sure. So the intention in enclosing the 2 porches on the Cornell and Murray Hill side were that we could pull the kitchens and bathrooms into those porches and better maintain the interior historic fabric in those rooms to keep them open, more similar to their original uses. We felt they were better suited as bedrooms, dining rooms, living rooms, as opposed to kitchens and baths. In adding kitchens and baths in those locations, we felt it really would have started to chop up the historic trim, the fireplaces that are in those rooms, and just sort of interfere with the overall feel of those rooms.
All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
We have Brad Nosen.
Hi, just from the ownership team, I just wanted to clear up Ms. Bailey's question regarding any additions. There's no addition physically being made to the building. They were simply proposing to close up the windows with some siding to provide more privacy, but that's the direction we're moving away from. So there's no actual addition to the building. Just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
But it's just looks on the outside, it just look like it's an additional adding to the building from the outside. I mean, you know, even though you enclose, it does appear as if you adding on from the outside.
I see.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
I'm just wondering if there's any other way of looking at how you can achieve what your intent is without, making it look as if you're trying to add on. That's what I'm trying to go at.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think the feedback we received from the Little Italy design review the other night suggested, let's drop the enclosing of the patios right on the Cornell and the Murray Hill side and keep that all as glass. And so that is the direction we are moving. And so we're fine with going that direction. And it may result in one less unit, but that's okay.
Because, I drive down and I love this building. I even ate at the restaurant. So I just really love this historical building. I hate it to be hidden. So I'm looking at other ways of not hide it. So I'm glad you're looking at other ways. So I would like to see some other designs versus what we're looking at. So I'm going to leave that up to Madam Chair to see how we can proceed with that versus what we're looking at, meaning how we can move forward, either tabling this or not. So that's something Madam Chair can assist us with. Based on what we're looking at, based on the design right now.
I'm going to keep it brief because I have some background noise going here at my house. This is a conceptual review only, so we're giving feedback. We are not taking any action on this applicant right now. So I think your feedback aligns with the local committee, and I'm very happy to hear the developer and architectural team has taken that to heart, and we look forward to seeing the adjusted design to accommodate that.
All right, thank you for the clarification that this is a conceptual.
And we have Miss Anderson. And Mr. Pettit did have his hand raised a couple times. I'm not sure if he was just lowering it or if he had additional comments.
The chairman clarified what I was going to address. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am going to speak to something that is a little bit out of our purview here, but it does sadden me that there will no longer be a public aspect to this building. I think as lovers of traditional architecture, we always liked the ability to see the inside and to enjoy the restaurant there. And I do regret that we're going to be losing that. COVID is not going to last forever. But that said, again, it's not my place to, tell you what to do with the building, as long as the zoning's compliant. I do think the double hung windows are appropriate. That should be maintained. And I do think that covering the porch would be a real detrimental look. So those are my comments. Thank you for receiving them.
We have no other hands raised.
Okay, well, Michelle basically said that what I was going to say, so I lowered my hand, is I think the double hung windows are more appropriate for this building, along with the comments were already made about maintaining visual access within those porches. And I think just the local committee made about the railing would also allow the revisions to that second floor to really blend in with the original addition or not make it as noticeable, the changes. So I think that the local committee's comments were very appropriate, and I align with their feedback. Other questions or comments from the commission? None at this time, it sounds like. So question to the ownership and to the architect, do you feel you've received enough feedback from the commission today to revise your proposal and come back for your final approval?
Yes, we do.
I agree.
Yep, I agree. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing the progress related to this and how you move forward.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Thank you. We'll move on to, it does not look like we have any landmark nominations or administrative or meeting minutes. Do we have meeting minutes today? Nothing today. Administrative reports. Donna,
Just one item. I am sorry to report that on Monday, the Board of Zoning Appeals overturned our decision regarding 4500 Lorraine Avenue. The applicants had appealed our decision to the BZA. The BZA unanimously supported the appeal. I think I'm currently considering with our director and Mr. Hastings if we have any recourse or if it's advisable to ask for a rehearing. And maybe we should talk about this offline, but I just wanted to let you know that we lost that one.
well, that does sadden me personally. And just wonder what what other options or opportunities there are.
Yeah, we've been asked by the neighborhood to pursue a rehearing. I'm not sure we have the authority to do that, but someone else might. And I think we just have to decide if it's worth pursuing at this point.
What address this again, Don?
4500 Lorraine.
Don, were you at the BZA hearing?
I was.
So you were able to speak and kind of.
I did.
Yeah.
I don't know how well I did. Apparently, I didn't convince them. I think the testimony from the engineers and the consultants was pretty overwhelming. You know, the motion was made with the comment that they weren't convinced that the building was significant enough, which in my mind shouldn't be part of their purview or their criteria for judging whether or not we followed our procedures. Unfortunately, the chief building official wasn't there. The councilman wasn't there. I think I think they heard a one-sided argument, and they were convinced that the building should be demolished. I regret that we didn't have all our forces at the meeting, and I think that would have helped.
I would just make a comment that in terms of consideration for a rehearing, the applicant made the case that they weren't able to use post shores to stabilize that building, which would be applicable if the building was occupied. But they should have expelled all of their tenants previously. That would provide the opportunity to very inexpensively provide reshores within the interior of that structure to stabilize the entire structure. It really would not be that expensive, but you can't do it while it's occupied. Once it's vacated, you can stabilize that building and be able to restore or totally remove and rebuild the exterior of that building. So I don't know if that point was made. Developer was saying that it was impossible to stabilize it. I don't agree with that at all once it's vacated.
Yeah, I don't agree with it either. I mean, the developer still is having an issue with getting the tenants out of the building.
You'll have a hard time demolishing it with tenants in there.
Yes, sir.
Stuart, do you have any feedback are there other avenues that we can go after our initial decision and then the action by the BZA?
Yeah, I have corresponded with Don about this. The Landmarks Commission itself does not have any standing to appeal or ask the Board of Zoning Appeals for reconsideration. The Board of Zoning Appeals and Landmarks Commission are both the City of Cleveland. The Landmark Commission is not, the legal term is sui juris, have the ability to make that appeal. But there are people that may have standing, including, residents that are nearby and that sort of thing. Or maybe a member of the Landmarks Commission may have standing to ask the Board of Zoning Appeal for reconsideration. The only thing, the other caveat I would make, though, is that now that the Board of Zoning Appeals has made a decision, the time to appeal that decision to the Court of Common Pleas is starting to run. So if someone wants to take that appeal, they would have to go down that track as well.
Stu, it was also, I spoke with the secretary of the BZA this week, and she said that the zoning administrator in building and housing expressed the opinion that the Board of Building Standards should have been the appropriate board to hear this appeal because of the nature of the request. It was a demolition request. It had to do with, building issues. I don't know that that's, I can send you the code that I was shared, but I don't know if that's a route to go.
What were the actual reasons why they agreed that demolition was okay? Safety, or was it because it's
I
considered?
think nothing was clearly stated in the motion. I think it had a lot to do with safety and just the overwhelming amount of testimony that was presented about the structural condition of the building and the feeling from the board that the building wasn't significant enough. And that's what irks me the most.
How can that be an issue? I mean, if it's in a historical district, the building automatically.
Correct.
The building.
Yeah.
How you qualify as a significance as an historical building doesn't seem to be a real.
I mean, I think that's our job. I think that's the commission's purview. I think that's why we create historic districts and act on requests like this. I don't think it's the Board of Zoning Appeals purview to comment on whether a building is historic enough.
Well, from the very beginning, everybody's inclination was that the building was unsafe and needed to be demolished. There was never really a strong voice other than ours in support of its preservation. But so, as far as appealing it, do we have the authority to appeal, or how does that work?
Well, the action will be ratified on Monday. Oh, actually, it must be Tuesday because Monday's a holiday. But I have to defer to Stu about what our options are.
Yeah, again,
So-
the landmarks, the city council set up how we deal with landmarks, and they created the Landmarks Commission, but they created an opportunity for people who don't like the decision of the Landmarks Commission to appeal the decision of the Landmarks Commission. So every issue is up for appeal. We do not have exclusive authority to determine, the historic nature of buildings. It was set up so that the Board of Zoning Appeals or Board of Building Standards, depending on the right track, does have authority to reverse us. That's set up in the ordinance. We don't have authority. It's like a judge getting reversed in the Court of Appeals. The judge doesn't have standing to appeal that. One of the parties may, but not the judge.
So then we don't have the possibility of an appeal.
So, Stu, do you agree with the opinion that it should have gone to the Board of Building Standards rather than zoning appeals?
This is the first I've heard of that. So Don, please send me that. That would be helpful. But again, that's something that the Board of Zoning Appeals should have decided, and maybe they still can. You say the Secretary of Board of Zoning Appeals brought that attention?
Yes, it actually came from the zoning administrator in Building and Housing, who advises BZA.
So they have the ability to reverse themselves. I mean, if they decide that they didn't have jurisdiction over the appeal, that's something that they themselves can fix. And it's the best we can do is just point it out to them.
Yeah, I think one of the issues that seems to be consistent on this project is that we had all kinds of engineering information that made it very obvious or clear that the building was unsafe. Even though it retained a tenant in the building, that was an issue that never actually was clarified as why the tenant wasn't removed. But there was never, I don't think there was never really any strong voice as to, like Mr. Strickland said, how things could be done to stabilize it, to preserve it. There was never really a good presentation.
Well, they were never willing to look at
that's the interesting thing. Yeah, nobody was actually willing to listen to the owner's proposals on this project. I mean, everybody in the ownership position considered this building unsafe for the first go and wanted to demolish it. And eventually they got it seemed they've gotten what they wanted. And our voice really was never clear. It wasn't, I think we did a good job in presenting our concerns, but it was never really listened by the pertinent people.
I mean, I also pointed out that the building department has the authority, the chief building official has the authority to take the building down if it's a public hazard.
Right.
He's chosen not to do that. And he supported our decision on this. But the board, that didn't seem to sway the board.
Yeah. So it seems like there's not much we can do at this point other than accept this decision.
Well, I think, Stuart's comment is, would be good to point it out to both the Board of Zoning Appeals and or the building department in advising if you feel that it should have gone to the building standards versus zone. Should that needs to be evaluated and decided upon in the next, really today and tomorrow before they take. Because the only other option, as you said, Stuart, us members or a member of the community to.
Yeah, I think that's right. The Board of Zoning Appeals has its own lawyer from the same law department that I'm from. And the best that I can do is to pass, whatever you send me, Don, on to her.
Well, I think we should be at least on record as having protest the demolition of the property. I mean, we're in a very weak position, so there's not much of a strong voice we can actually present at this point. But it is unusual that the Landmarks Commission's position is not actually supported when it comes to these so-called issues of safety. Yes, it's an old historical building. There will be issues of, every historical building will have issues of safety, issues of restoration. But if they become too severe to the point where we just disregard them, and then the building gets demolished, it doesn't really give us a lot of strength as far as supporting the historical values of some of these buildings.
So Stuart, can we officially in writing go on record recommending that this appeal or the opinion from the Board of Building Zoning Appeals be vacated and that the appeal be redirected to building standards?
The short answer would be no. We are on record with our opinion. That was our initial decision. So they're aware of what we feel about the nature of that request and are denying it. So that is the record of what the Landmarks Commission did. We don't really have standing to tell them what to do in terms of how they would go. The best, again, I think I can do is to pass on whatever law we think there is to the lawyer that is representing the Board of Zoning Appeals.
All right. Well, if we can at least do that and see if there's any movement within the BZA to vacate your approval here.
Stu, I'll get you that part of the code today and we can talk again.
Okay.
Any other items on our agenda?
That's all I've got. Welcome back. Hope we have a better year this year.
I think we're going to be going virtual for a while yet, obviously.
Well, at least we have, this down and, we're getting politer and politer presenters to the points that they're in their hand after every time they want to speak. And I just want to say thank you to everyone on the commission for embracing this because it's made it fairly, hopefully for you too, much longer, but not painful. How's that? So, yeah, I think the it's a good format for now, and hopefully it's just temporary for a few more months.
Very
So
good.
if there's nothing else, we will adjourn today's meeting, and we'll see everybody in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Have a great
Bye-bye,
day.
everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks.
Chair.